So what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be we've had this discussion actually for Noach that you may have been in a discussion that I've talked about something like this in the past. The concept of stress and anxiety. Now, if you were to look at some of the letters of the Rebbe, for example, where he writes to people that talk to him about struggling from anxiety or stress. Sorry, whoops, that was a mistake. One of the things that the Rebbe often would tell people is to study a book called Chovot HaLevavot. Chovot HaLevavot, we're going to see now, if a person has a real chronicle situation, it doesn't help totally. But what it does help with is the mindset, and it's an incredible book. The Chovot HaLevavot is a book that was written by a man that we know little about, known as Rabbeinu Bachya. Now, there was two people known as Rabbeinu Bachya or Rabbeinu Bachaya. The one of them lived in, I think, the 1700s or the 1800s more recently. And there was another one that lived approximately 1,000 years ago. So we're talking about very different eras and time. So we're talking about approximately 1,000 years of people studying this work and gaining tremendous amount of calmness, satisfaction, peace of mind and tranquility. And over the years, this has been a primary book that people have gone to find comfort and security within their lives. Now, I wanted to start off with one major point, which I love to talk about, and talk about this all the time. It's one of my most important points, and that is this. We all live in our minds. Now, what that means is, and sometimes this is obvious, but we have to remember this. We live not in the place that we live in our minds. Hey, Leon and Irene, welcome.
Hi, Rabbi.
Good evening, welcome. What does it mean that we live in our minds? What it means is that how we feel is going to be largely dependent on what's going on in our heads. So if we want to change the way we're feeling, moving to a bigger house could be helpful. Going to a different country could be helpful, but that's not really where you live. The main place where we live is in our heads. So if you change the physical place that you live, it could be beneficial at times, if it's a peaceful environment, etc. But if you have problems with what is being thought of or what you're thinking about, and it doesn't make a difference where you go. There's a famous statement, which I often quote, is "B'makom shel machshavto shel adam sham hu nimtza." In the place of the thought of a person, that's where he is found. And one of my favorite stories about this is about a man that is in the middle of his prayers. And while he's praying, the Rebbe, his Rebbe, I don't know which Rebbe it was, stands and is waiting for him to conclude. And when he concludes, the Rebbe turns around and says to him, "Welcome back, Shalom Aleichem. Was machst du Yid?" So he says to him, "What do you mean, Rebbe? I've been here the whole time. Garnish gegangen. I didn't go anywhere." So his Rebbe said, "Hold on a second. During your davening, you were in Italy, at the trade in Italy, and you finished davening, and then they say one of the great things about Shemona Esrei, about the Amidah, is that it takes you anywhere, wherever you want to go. If you have any issues, just daven. You know why? Because suddenly you find yourselves in all different types of places." Now, that's on the lighter, more humorous side of things. But on the serious side of things, anxiety and stress is the biggest problem that the world faces itself with. And definitely in the last era, and I would say not just in the last era, throughout times. Because anxiety and stress is what causes people to do all types of things that they don't want to do. The reason why there was just a war in Israel is because there's a bunch of Meshugoyim over there that are struggling, whether they have anxiety or they're having power struggles, but it's their own mind issues that they're struggling with. And most people, Baruch Hashem, don't harm people because of that. But some people, when they have stress, they let it out on themselves and they beat up on themselves. Some people, when they have anxiety, they let it out on their family. It's always an internal struggle, and sometimes we let it out on other people. So that's why I would say, Baruch Hashem, we've come to a place in our world where physical issues, where financial issues and starvation are not the main issues that we're facing. But unfortunately, on the other hand, mental issues. Now, when I say mental issues, it's the issues that we have going on in our heads. We have more to, in the old days, people thought about one thing. Where am I going to get my next meal? Where am I going to sleep tonight? Some people thought about. Right? Today, our issues, thank God, are not that. But unfortunately, depression, suicide, anxiety is on the rise. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to start to study a book tonight. At least we'll read the beginning of it, which I think has helped Jews survive the struggle for a long time. Because if anybody has had a reason to be stressed and to suffer from anxiety and trauma and worry, it's been Jewish people. For millennia, we've been hunted. Pogroms and Cossacks and Holocausts and wars and exiles and people doing all types of ridiculous things. Could you imagine the stress that it puts on us as a person? How did the Jewish people overcome and still be here today? By the way, just on a side note, there's been a lot of research lately into trauma and how trauma in the world of psychology, in how trauma has everlasting, long impacts on a man's psyche and mental health. And they've shown that there's a special, unique type of gene that survivors of the Holocaust had, a traumatic gene, and how it actually was passed down to their children and sometimes even their grandchildren, which is quite scary if you think about it, but quite incredible as well to think about the fact that trauma doesn't just stay with the person. Sometimes we can be suffering traumas and stresses and anxieties even from previous generations. And that's apparently been proven. So they've recorded that, and that could be causing people to have different types of anxieties. Now, I'm not going to get into, I want to focus on the Jewish psychological element of it and how we have been able to overcome this. And the answer in one word to all of this is trust, that we trust in God, that's our security. And what does it mean? I know it sounds cliche and we hear that from people. This book goes into the details, the nitty-gritty, and once you study this work properly, it really changes the way we see things. And I would say, if I were to recommend to people one work that people should think, if people want to get spiritual, have an understanding of spirituality and things, they should learn the Torah, they should learn the Tanya. But if people want to learn about mental health and stress, etc., they should learn Chovot HaLevavot, this book, and also the Tanya. Tanya is also very helpful in that way. So with that introduction, we're going to be starting what's known as the gate to trust. The gate to trust. Now, this is not about the gate to trust in our spouse. It's not about the gate to trust in our boss. or anybody else other than our Creator. And it's what it's going to show. I'm actually going to skip the introduction, which, by the way, the introduction is really important, but it's very long, and I want to just get into some of the core of it. Trust is the ability to let go, to feel safe and secure, to have absolute certainty that things are going to be okay. And I want to just tell you before we get into the text, how the last few days have been slightly stressful for me. Not very. I lost my wallet. And you know that today's day and age, you lose your wallet. I had a good few $100s in there because I had to pay somebody cash. And I was going to pay them. I lost my wallet. I have all my credit cards in there. I have my license in there. And who knows who could have found it. I haven't found it for 2 days, looked everything, turned the house upside down. But I could just tell you that personally, what's helped me the last few days not to gay mishiga v'mizokt, to stay calm, even losing your wallet. Baruch Hashem, the wallet's not the end of the world. It's just a few things. But today, you know, we put our life in two places. Our life is on our phone and in our wallets, right? But not to go mishiga is the Eibush is taking care. The Eibush or whatever. I'll get my wallet somehow. Maybe I'll get it with the cash after. Whatever. Worst comes to worst, I'll have to redo all those documents. The Eibush is that telephone. So this is just a little bit of a thing that studying this recently in preparation for today's share and in general has actually calmed me down. I'm not so stressed the fact that I lost. Of course, I'm looking for my wallet and that's what I got to do and do all those things. But it's even in small things like that. And then for sure, when we're talking about big things, whether we have health worries or we have financial worries or worries about our children or about our parents, siblings, anything, marriage, all other worries that we have, or just plain anxiety. This certainly is really the strongest way. And in one word, trust in God means the certainty, the absolute certainty that things are going to be okay. You know, my favorite rabbinic joke is the story about the man. They say that this happened to Rabbi Goldman, that he had this guy that every single Shabbos, when he would walk out to the podium to say his speech, his drasha, he would always fall asleep. The 1 week, even before Rabbi Goldman starts, he falls asleep and he says, Berel, what's this? I haven't even started the drasha. You're already sleeping. He says, Rabbi, I trust you. So that's another type of trust. You know, trust you. I trust you. You'll put me to sleep. Hopefully, I'm not going to put you to sleep today. But let's get into it. Come. All right. You can see my screen. Yes. You see the screen? Okay. So it's got English and Hebrew, and we're going to focus both on thing. Now, as I mentioned, there's a whole long introduction, which is really important to learn. But let's get into some juicy stuff. If you look over here, all the way back here, going all the way back, this whole thing, if I were to do it, were to take us through the introduction. And the introduction is really a summary of the whole thing. Sorry, 1 second. Something is blocking my view. Okay. Okay, so he says like this. What does it mean to have trust? This is what it means to have trust. Trust is peace of mind of the one who trusts. Peace of mind. Wouldn't we all love peace of mind? That's what it means to trust, that you actually have peace of mind. That one relies in his heart that the one he trusts in will do what is good and proper for him on the matter he has trusted him with, according to his ability and his understanding of what will further his good. Let's do that in the Hebrew because it's actually more powerful in the Hebrew. Muhusa bitachon, what is trust? Is menuchat hanefesh. One of the blessings that my parents would always give me is you should have menuchas hanefesh. Menuchas hanefesh is a really beautiful blessing. It means tranquility of the soul, that you should be tranquil. You know, there's sometimes you give a job over to somebody, and when you give a job over to that person, you just don't feel, you feel uneasy, as though you don't know if they're going to accomplish what you gave them, the job that you gave them. That's the opposite. That's not menuchas hanefesh. That's when you're uneasy. Sometimes you give a job to somebody, and you know the person is good, they're going to do the best job possible. You know that whatever job, you're just totally happy. Sometimes you give a job to the person, you're so worried about the job that they're going to do, you have no rest. That's the opposite. So if you wanted to have real trust, you could trust means that you have absolute trust and you're totally calm that the one that you have entrusted will be able to fulfill to the best of their ability what you've entrusted them to do. Because you know that he has the ability, he's going to do the best that he can, and he has the best in mind for you. Now, who could we say that about? Is there any human being that we could have such strong trust? Hopefully we trust our spouses or somebody in our family to that certain degree, or a child or a parent, somebody we could trust in that way. But nobody to this exact, nobody's perfect. No human being is perfect. The only one that has the absolute infinite capability to do exactly what we're supposed to is God. So he says, the main factor which leads one to trust is the one trusted. And without which trust cannot exist. In other words, you have to be able to have the trust. Some people struggle with this. They can't trust anybody. They're going to do everything themselves. They never could give any job over to anybody because they're always trying to give. So what does he say? It's for one's heart to be confident that the one trusted will keep his word and will do what he pledged, that he will also think to do what is good for him, even on what he did not pledge out of pure generosity and kindness. This will be explained. Okay, that is actually, whoops, how did I get to chapter 4? That was a jump. Sorry. That's actually the whole of chapter 1. I mentioned to you the introduction is like more than half the book. But somehow my computer jumped to chapter. My apologies. What's going on? What is going on? Sorry. Okay. So this is the point that we made over here. There's a famous Hasidic line. I want you to listen to this line for a second. It's a really powerful line. That is this. The Tzemach Tzedek once had a chassid come up to him that was going through a real struggle. I believe the story was that he had been reported falsely against the, made false accusations made against him. And he was taken to court in an anti-Semitic regime, and his chances of winning was close to zero. And the punishment was going to be life imprisonment if he was lucky. And he came crying to the Tzemach Tzedek. What should he do? Tzemach Tzedek was a third Chabad Rebbe. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him, Tracht gut wird sein gut. And in English, that means think good, it will be good. Okay? Now, this is like not just a line, this is a whole teaching, it's a whole ideology that we have within the Hasidic world. And the non-Hasidic world and the secular world, the non-Jewish world, everyone's taken on this concept. Tracht gut wird sein gut means that when you think positive things happen. Now the question is like this. if I trust in God, some people thought, there's the Chazon Ish, who was a great Lithuanian posek of the previous generation, great rabbi, not a Hasidic rabbi, but he said that what does trust in Hashem mean? Trust in Hashem means that I trust that whatever God does will be for the good. The Hasidic approach is a lot deeper than that and says, Trach gut wird sein gut, which means not that if you think good, it will be good, but it is actually good when you do good, when you think good. In other words, what does that mean? And listen to this. Trach gut wird sein gut means God is waiting for somebody to come along and say, I know that God is going to do good for me. Think positive, and you could be not the greatest Jew, not the most frumme Yid. You might not keep everything and think. You might think, oh, I'm not such a good Jew. But the very fact that you said, God, I'm trusting in you, that you're going to do good is enough. It makes you overcome all your struggles. God does good for people that do think good. Now, this concept has recently become a famous secular concept known as the law of attraction. Has anybody heard of the law of attraction? Or the concept, there was a book written called The Secret, which became very famous.
Yes.
Yeah, you've heard of it, Leo?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So they took this concept, and that was that if you think positive and you try, you think and imagine the whole idea, good things will happen. Okay, and there's truth to that. But what the story with the Tzemach Tzedek was that things changed and he came out of that situation. Now, taking this home for a moment, in the early 60s, my grandfather, Rabbi Yitzhak David Grona, who was one of the leading rabbis over here in Australia, he was once visiting the Rebbe from while he was here. I think it was the 60s, maybe it was in the 70s. It was probably the 70s or 80s, actually, now that I think about it. And there had been a few bad incidents that had just happened in Melbourne. There was, I think the Yeshiva shul burnt down, and then there was this person had something terrible happen. And then while he was in America, Rabbi Winner, who was a young rabbi that had just started teaching in the Yeshiva Gedola, had a terrible car accident, and he wrote to the Rebbe, like, what's going on? Why are these things happening? And the Rebbe said to him, somewhat of a harsh statement. He said, when you will start to apply the statement of our rabbis, tracht gut wird sein gut, think good, it'll be good, things will change for you. Okay? So this is a side point to my whole discussion that I wanted to tell you about, which is that on the one hand, we've got to trust God. And we have to have the certainty that things will be good. And that takes work, that takes things, but if it's done, I believe that this is the greatest level of comfort and certainty and security a person can have. When you have that certainty that your God, who is infinite, that knows that you doesn't have to make pledges. But when you actually allow yourself to see it and to do it, it happens even more. When I say it happens even more, what I mean is that you actually are able to see the goodness in the greatest way possible. That's the tracht gut part. Okay. Now, let me take this a step further. We're going to go into chapter 2 for you, because it's really important that we get this understanding. And he says like this: there are 7 factors which make it possible for one to trust in another human being. When we want to trust in people, we need 7 factors. Number 1 is compassion. Compassion, pity, and love. When a man knows that his friend has compassion and pity for him, he will trust in him and be at peace with regard to troubling him with all of his matters. So first thing, you have to know that the person that you're entrusting has compassion, has pity, has love. You don't want to feel judgmental. You don't want to be judged by the other person. Okay? in order to judge that, to feel, that's the first thing that you need. The second thing, and I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because we're trying to get to a certain point. The second thing that you need in order to trust the person is to know that his friend, besides loving him, is not forgetful or lazy in taking care of his needs. Rather, he knows that his friend is active and resolved to do it. Because if all of this is not clear, one's trust in him will not be complete, since one knows of his forgetfulness and laziness in attending to his needs. So what happens if you have a person that you know is full of love and is full of pity and compassion, but on the other hand, you know, people are limited. If you really want to trust, a person can have all the love, but not everyone has all the time for you in the world. People have their own lives that they have to worry about, right? So the only way you could have complete trust in that person is that person, if you know the person is very, very active, not lazy, and has all the time for you. The next thing that but when the one he trusts combines these two traits, great compassion for him and full attention to his matters, he will trust him without a doubt. So if you could find somebody that has these two great qualities, now, basically what it's telling us is that it's almost impossible to find somebody that has both great qualities all the time. You could find somebody that has tremendous love. You could find somebody that has time and does things and is not forgetful and not lazy. But somebody that has both of them is what we're really trying to find. But that's not it. There's a third thing. The third thing is that he's... Sorry, my headphone that I was using just disconnected in a second. Okay. The next thing is he's strong. Could you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. He will not be defeated in whatever he desires, and nothing can prevent him from doing the request of the one who trusts him. Because if he is weak, one cannot fully trust in him, even though it is clear that he is compassionate and active due to the many occasions which he failed to do. And one combines these three traits, trusting in him will be more fitting. So it's one thing to be kind and loving and have compassion. It's another thing to be active and not lazy. But the third thing you need to be is the person has to actually be strong. Strong means that nothing gets in their way, that they will never fail at doing what they have to do. The next thing is, the fourth thing, that one he trusts knows what is beneficial for him, both for his inner and outer life, and also that none of the ways which benefit him or further his welfare are hidden to him. In other words, you're going to trust that person knows exactly what is good for you, what is good for you. Maybe giving you $1 million isn't so good for you, or maybe it's exactly what you need. Hold on, but does he have the strength to give it to you? Maybe he doesn't have $1 million himself, so how could he give it to you? He could be a person that's very active, but he doesn't know what's good for you. He could be strong that nothing gets in his way, but he does all the wrong things for you. Because if he does not know all of this, one will not be at peace in entrusting himself to him. But if he combines the knowledge of the ways which are beneficial to him, the ability to implement them, great attendance to them, and compassion for him, his trust will certainly be strengthened. Why are we going through all this? Has anybody figured it out yet? To show us that it's impossible to find a human being that has all these traits. Right? It's impossible. Even the greatest child, the greatest parents, the greatest spouse doesn't have these traits. They can have some of these traits, and hopefully most good people have some of these traits, but no one has all these traits, especially not this one. No one knows always what is good for you. As a matter of fact, you don't know what's good for you most of the time. Definitely not other people. Okay. So now, the fifth one. The fifth trait is,
I'll read it in English to make it simple for you. The one he trusts is under the exclusive care of him from the beginning of his existence, his development, babyhood, childhood, youthhood, adulthood, old age, until the end of his days. I.e., that no one else has ever done to him any good except the one he trusts. And when all this is clear to the trustee, he is obligated to be at peace on his friend and to rely on him because of the many past benefits he already received from his friend and the constant favors he still presently receives. And this will obligate strengthening one's trust in him, since he has been continuously benevolent to him from then until now. Certainly he will not abandon him until his final end. Is there any such person that has been taking care of you every single step of the way? Your parent maybe as a child, but even them, did they always do the right thing? Were they always able to give you exactly what you wanted? Did they always know what was best for you? Did they always have complete love and compassion and pity? I don't think so. The sixth thing, all matters of the truster are entirely in the hands of the one he trusts, and no one else can hurt him, help him, benefit him, or protect him from harm. As a slave chained down in his prison is entirely in the hands of his master, if the truster were in the hands of the one he trusts in this manner, it would be fitting to trust him. In other words, if you are totally in his hands, some people, some parents think that they have complete control over their children. They could guide exactly what's going to happen. Nobody has such control. Right? And let's get to the seventh one, because this is where we're going to get. The seventh attribute is that the person he trusts is absolutely generous and kind, i.e., the most possible extreme of generosity and kindness to those deserving and to those who are not deserving. Now, this is an important line. To those deserving and those who are not deserving. And that his generosity and kindness is continuous, never ending, and without interruption. Okay, so now what have we done? If you wanted to have complete trust in somebody, that somebody would have to have 7 of these abilities. Now, over the first couple, 2 or 3, you could maybe find somebody. Let's go through them quickly again. The first one is pity and love and compassion. Yeah, our parents, our loved ones probably have some pity and love and compassion. The next one is that he's never lazy, he's always active. Okay, there's some people that are very active, lazy, they get things done. The third thing is not only they get their things done, but there's nothing that gets in their way. They are strong and they have the ability to do anything they want to do. The fourth thing was that they know exactly what you need, what you in your circumstances need, what your exact particular soul and makeup and is requires. The fifth thing is that the one he trusts is under exclusive care for him. He doesn't have, you don't have to worry about that he's going to be taking care of somebody else. He's not going to have time for you today. He's on the other line. He's too busy for you. Now he's always. The sixth thing is that he's in such good care that he's able to protect you, and she's got complete control over you and has able to do anything to you. And the seventh thing was that he has the ability to do the most extreme levels of kindness and generosity. There's no limit to his bank account, to his time, to his care. So what do you find from all these 7 things? That there is no human being on earth that is able to fit all 7 of these qualities. That's okay. So therefore, what is it telling us? Don't put all our eggs in the wrong bucket. Don't rely on people for your happiness. Your happiness should not be on any person, not even your closest people. Because no person is able to be perfect as we've just described. It does not exist. There's only one existence that has this ability. That is who? That is God. Now you might say to me, but I don't see it. I don't see God taking care of me all the time. What do we answer to that? Great. God is loving, he's kind, he's compassionate, he's active, he's able to do whatever he wants, nothing can get in his way, etc., all these levels. But I don't see him. What would you answer to somebody that said that?
Just our expectations. We don't know what's good for us, so we don't know that he's not looking out for us.
Okay, that's one point. Very good. So maybe you're saying, just to confirm what you're saying that maybe what you think is good for you is not what God thinks is good for you. And maybe you, as I mentioned before, you don't even know what is truly good for you. And therefore, you think it's not good, but really it is good. Okay, that's a good answer. But the truth is that all these 7 things, there is somebody that is doing all these 7 things for you. There is somebody that is giving you infinite amounts of love, compassion, and pity. That is taking care of you every single way. That is, nothing gets in the way of what he has to do for you. Has infinite amounts of love and kindness and generosity towards you. You has complete control about what happens to you. All these things are fully there. Now, if this is exactly what's happening and God is taking care of you in such an incredible way, why don't we feel it? Why don't you feel that?
Yeah, because of our biases, because of our expectations.
Because of our expectation? Also because our mind. Because we don't allow us to think about it. Because we don't stop and think about it. That's why you stop and you learn this and you say, hold on a second. Maybe if I trusted in Hashem and I recognized that he was taking care of me, I wouldn't be so worried. I wouldn't be so anxious. I wouldn't be so stressed. Because I would recognize that everything that Hashem is taking care of. Now, once again, as I mentioned, this doesn't necessarily help someone that has a real anxiety condition. Sometimes it's not in your control at all. Okay? And then there's different therapies, sometimes even medication is required, etc. That's a different thing. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist. I can possibly help in those areas, but this is for our day-to-day lives of stress and small anxieties that we go through to help us calm things down. And I think long-term, it could also help with the chronic things. But this is definitely not in place of, because long-term, the more you think about this, the more every time you do, what happens and once again, I'm not a professional in this field, but the more we get anxious in our hearts, we live on a kind of level of an adrenaline and a tenseness. And the more, if we don't know how to calm ourselves down, and they try to change different psychologists of different ways. Some people say that you got to do breathing and you got to do this. And all those things are true to a certain extent, or however they work and work with different people in different ways. But the most important thing you have to be able to do is to say to yourself, it's okay. I'm okay. Things are good. And how do you do that? How do you do that? How do we stop and say, God, things are good. Things are going to be okay. Not only things are going to be great, exactly the way they're supposed to be. Not only that, I'm going to think it's going to be better than that. How do we do that?
Trust and let go.
Sorry, what were you saying now? Bye?
Trust and let go.
But to let go. Exactly, to trust and let go. To recognize that God has all these abilities. Okay, so let's look inside. Thanks for that, Noach. Okay, let's look inside. He says like this. So he says, Mishin is Katsula is Kolamidasailu. If anybody has gathered together all these attributes, in Kol Mash is Karan Kodin Lazar, Okay, there's also, including the whole introduction, which we never spoke about. The introduction goes more into detail of what it means to have trust and why we should have trust in God. We one day might revisit the introduction, which is important. Nishmelu tnaya bitochen. He says, in this case, you would, all the conditions that are required to have trust are there. If you knew this about that individual, that he has all of these attributes, you would be obligated to trust that person. If you could find a person that has all these attributes, you now would be obligated from your mind. In other words, from a logical perspective, all reasons would say that you have to trust this person. There is no one else that is more trustable than him. You should have, as I said at the beginning, peace of tranquility of your nefesh. Begoli of an hysteria believing. It should be palpable and subconscious in your mind. Uve varov, and in your limbs. In other words, you should always feel that level of relaxation and calmness and knowledge that things are okay. Uli maser love, and to give yourself over to him. And to want his decrees. And to judge this individual properly in all his laws and actions. You know, there's an interesting study that I read years ago. That was how they say that women, like teenagers, girls, even married younger women, they've done tests and they find that when they're tense, simply by calling their mother and hearing their mother on the phone, can lower their anxiety and their stress levels by several notches. And then actually seeing their mother further reduces that. And actually being able to be in the presence is even like a further. They actually could see how they've measured on people the levels of adrenaline and anxiety, how by being around their mother, how it's helped. Why? Because your parents, by many people, not by all people, by many people, give a person that level of security and comfort. But at the end of the day, we know that parents are far from perfect. And parents have their own stresses and anxieties and issues. You know, I recently read a book about Ariel Sharon and his life. And one of the things that was an incredible person, one of Israel's greatest. Of course, I definitely have some disagreements about some of the decisions that he made. But I think that besides for those decisions which have tremendous impact as a person, as a soldier, I think he was probably Israel's greatest soldier. As a soldier and commander. We know that he had huge impacts in both the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War, and even before that. And by the way, Alan Jackson, who's a member of our Dingley community, fought and had a personal relationship with Ariel Sharon, and fought in Ariel Sharon's first big task was forming the 101 Brigade, which was the first brigade to fight terrorism. In the early years, in the early 60s, and things like that started in the late 50s, and then he became more further commanding. Alan Jackson also fought in that. He also fought in the Yom Kippur War under the direction of Ariel Sharon. Anyway, but in that book they write how in the middle of war, they knew soldiers often relate how they would often tune into the channel on their radios where Sharon was. Because when they needed to be calmed down, you can imagine soldiers in the middle of a war, they needed to hear a calm and pleasant and peaceful voice. And Sharon seemed to always have it. And they laid how the one time when they were under serious attack and Sharon started getting anxious and not talking, and people tuned in, that got them really worried. If Sharon is not calm, then wow, it must be really bad. Now, that's the thing. We tend to trust in a person, for the soldiers, Sharon was their commander. They knew that he was good, and they knew that they had their best in mind, but at the end of the day, he's still a person. And when he had his moments would calm them down, but they put their trust in him. And then when he was down, they also were down. He was in an anxious situation and they became an anxious situation. Now, I'm not, God forbid, judging or blaming them. But that's what we do. We trust in individuals. Okay. The truth is that there's only one that we should be having our trust in, and that's God. Because no one else has the ability to always be correct and on time and do what we have to do and know what's best for us. Okay. So look at this. When we investigate these 7 conditions, we will not find them at all in the creating beings, but we will find them all in the Creator. He is compassionate in his creations. Written, it says in Tehillim. What does it say? Rachum v'chan Hashem. We're going to just quickly bring a few of these verses that show all these attributes about Hashem. It says that God is merciful. It says, should I not take pity that he has pity? He takes pity on Nineveh in the story of Yonah and the big fish that we read on Yom Kippur. V'she'enoi mis'alem hinei lo yonum v'lo yishon shem Yisrael. It says that we say this in Tehillim. It's one of our favorite songs from Chabad Dingli. We sing it on Shabbat morning. God never sleeps, he never slumbers. Of course, we like to sing Al Tiro, which says, don't have any sudden fear. Why? Because Hashem is always watching us. Nobody else could be so relaxed. How could it be that Jewish people had bombs flying all over them? There was a level of calmness for many of them. Did it mean that nobody was going to get hurt? I don't know. But we have trust that God will take care of us. 4,000 rockets come to them, even before the Iron Dome. Before the Iron Dome, there was thousands of rockets shot into Israel. And how many people died from them? In any normal place, thousands of people would have died. Before the Gulf War, the first Gulf War in 1991, I think it was, Saddam Hussein said he was going to shoot missiles into Israel. And gas and all these type of things. And all over the world, people were saying to leave Israel. People were leaving. Most people didn't fly. And you can go back now and see the videos. They're on YouTube. I don't have to, although I don't have access to YouTube right now, but look at the Rebbe's promise. People would come to the Rebbe before the Gulf War. And all the rabbis all over the world told their students to come home. And people came to Rebbe. I know people over here in Australia that were going there. Mendel knew a whole bunch of people. They went past the Rebbe, they had things planned in Israel, and he said, no, go to Israel. Israel is the safest place. You will be safe there. And you know that not a single person died as a result of a missile hitting. Yeah, hundreds of missiles, and those weren't like these Katyushas from thing. There were serious missiles that destroyed buildings. There was no protection against them. But not a single person died in very populated Israel. And the Rebbe gave that sincerity. And many people said that he wouldn't do it. Now that's the Rebbe had his certainty that the Eibishter, that God will protect the Jewish people. And he was so certain about that security. You could see on video telling people publicly, tell people to go to Israel. By causing people not to go, you're getting people more stressed and anxious. Go. Don't cancel your flights. Now, I'm not in the position to tell people to behave like that. The Rebbe had that knowledge, but the Rebbe, I believe, and what we learn over here is when you have that trust, then God makes it apparent to you. In other words, God is always taking care of us. God is always watching over us. But when you show him that you're trusting in him, then he makes you be able to see the good things happen. That's what I said earlier when I told you the concept of trach good v'tzayin good. What does it mean, think good and will be good? Why do we have such emphasis on it? That means when you show God that I'm going to think positive, I'm going to believe in you, I'm going to trust in you, and I'm going to believe that you're going to make this the best possible situation, God says, you know what? I don't care whether you're the most religious Jew or the most unobservant Jew. You've trusted in me. I have a responsibility to you, and I will take care of you because of your trust. When you don't show your trust, and God doesn't show that he's taking care of you necessarily the same way. Of course, he still is. He's always taking care of us. But when we show our trust, then God shows his care to us, and only good things happen. That's the concept of think good and it will be good. Okay, there's a lot more to discuss. We go through all these psukim over here. The God of Israel says it neither sleeps nor slumbers from Tehillim. He is wise in the heart and mighty. He has all the knowledge. Okay, these are all the verses that we have proof for all these things. He is alone, and he is the one who guides a person from the beginning of existence and development. It says, what does it say? Allahu avicha kanecha. This is in the end of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Allahu avicha kanecha v'wascha avicha kanecha. This is the end of Hazinu, the second last portion of the Torah. V'omar, and what does it say? It said, did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese? Right. So, what is the lesson that we're learning from all this? And by the way, we're just entering into the discussion, but I think this is an important discussion. You can go through the rest of the book, and maybe we will go through other parts of it in the future. But the main point that I'm trying to bring out is this. We all have different things that we feel like, oh, if that would be good, then everything will be okay. You know, if I had a job, then I'll feel secure. If I had $1 million in my house, in my bank account, I'd feel secure. If if I could get the coronavirus vaccine, I'd be okay. If I could, I don't know, if I can get this type of health thing, I'd be okay. We all feel like there's something that could keep us, that would make us calm. And the answer is that all those things are taken care of. Yes, we got to do the normal things. We got to get the vaccines, and we got to get the job when we need it, or we got to find ways to. We got to do our part. But the real blessing, the real care comes from Hashem. Our job is to trust him to do his job and to be calm. You've given it over to him, now be calm, now relax. Calm down, it'll be okay. Because it's not you taking care of the situation, because if you were taking care of the situation, I'd be worried. You know why? Because you don't have the infinite capabilities of God. But it's God taking care of the situation. So I ain't worried. I'm sleeping okay at night. That should be our mindset. And as I started off by saying, we all live in our heads. Our issues are what goes on, what we allow to bother us. When we don't allow certain things to bother us, that's when we feel the goodness. That's when we feel the tranquility and the peace of mind. So what happens? What do we do when we're actually feeling anxious and worried? What do we do at those moments? We stop and we say, God, you're in control, and know this is going to be amazing. You're going to make such great outcome. You're going to take care of all our issues. You have the ability. You care about me. You know what's good for me. And not only that, I'm going to tell you what I want. And that's trach good v'tzayin good. Trach good v'tzayin good means I think good. I'll even tell you what I want. And I know it will happen. Will it happen exactly the way I want it? I don't know. If God agrees with you, then it will happen that way. But that's what we have the ability. Once again, this does not mean that we should be lax. It does not mean that we shouldn't take control or take care of what we need. We should. There's to turn this whole story up, this whole picture upside down. There was another separate story with the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe. But somebody came up to him and said how he was really struggling financially. And he had serious, I don't know if he was in debt or he had a big amount of money or whatever it was. And I think on the top of my head, he owed a huge amount of money and it was really stressing him out. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him he should have trust in Hashem and think good and it'll be good. And he said to the Tzemach Tzedek, it would be a lot easier to think good if I had 10,000 rubles. So the Tzemach Tzedek said, don't worry, you have the 10,000 rubles too. You'll get it. I'll give you the blessing for the 10,000 rubles. And then he was calm as well. Now, it sounds like it's a story that's contradicting what I just said. On the one hand, yeah, it's true. We do need to have the trust in God. But we also want to feel like I've got some money in my bank account. I want to know that I've got my health. So he said, don't worry, you've got it. When he told him that, the way I understand the story was, because you have the trust, you also have the 10,000 rubles. And he did have it. You trusted, there it is. You trusted things were going to be okay, and there it is. So yeah, you think, if I had it, then I would be okay. Then I'd be able to trust God. It would be easier. But you have it. You do have it. You just got to say that God, I trust you, that I have it. All right. I understand that to some of us, this might sound like fantasy and a Harry Potter world. But I try my daily basis to live this. And I can tell you that it works for me when I get stressed. And everybody has their own little stresses. Okay. And some people have big stresses and some people have massive stresses. But it doesn't make a difference on the size of the stress. It makes a difference on the one that's taking care of your issues. And if it's you taking care, as I said before, if it's you taking care of your issues, I'd be worried. And you'd have something to worry about. Because you know what? You can't. But it ain't you. So you know what? I don't care if I have the biggest issues, if I have a $2 credit issue, a dollar issue, or a $10 million issue. The one that has to take care of it has an infinite bank account, has infinite longevity, has infinite love and care and devotion, etc. So why would I stress? Because he can take care of it. Now, I hope that some of you have questions. But from the looks of it, some of you may just be trying to figure out how you're going to, go back to watch Harry Potter or something. But okay, that's fine, All right. So that ends our formal discussion for tonight. And as I said, hopefully one day we'll continue, maybe next week or maybe another week. But this is an introduction to the concept of what to trust. And if anybody has any questions, challenges, please feel free to voice them. Any questions, comments, arguments? Where's Joe with a good joke? When we need them. All right. Okay. Nobody has any questions? No?
With you, well done, Jacques.
Okay. So that means that we're all going to be calm and relaxed, and we have taken care of all of our stresses. We all feel relaxed. We feel like we're in good hands. All right. Okay. So honestly, if anybody has any questions, any comments or feedback, to message me. Otherwise, have a good night. Thanks for joining.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Malcolm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So where do I go? Where do I go now? Just turn off the top.
Turn it off. Yeah, I'll end it and it will end for everybody.
Okay.
תודה רבה.
Okay.
Thank you
Laila
very
tov.
much.
Thank
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.